Alright, David Harry here. So in this video, I'm going to be doing a speed test between the S23 Ultra and the iPhone 15. Now this particular speed test is to see what their speeds are like when reading and writing to an external SSD over USB-C. Now, for anybody who has not got the time to be watching a fairly long involved video with a bunch of testing and like explanations and stuff like that, here is the bottom line. The iPhone 15 gets absolutely slaughtered by the S23 Ultra. So if that's all that you needed to know, this has been a very short video for you, and you may want to consider having a watch of some of my recent videos to do with other speed tests. However, for anybody who is interested in watching the speed test elements in this video and also the setups and stuff like that, here's a little bit of background information before I actually get into doing the speed tests. So this particular video was actually kind of like brought on from a previous video that I'd done, which was comparing the iPhone 15 Pro Max to the S23 Ultra, doing the exact same thing. So basically testing the USB-C abilities to be able to like transfer data to and from an external SSD. Now in that particular video, it was actually the S23 that got completely destroyed. However, as we will see in this video, the destruction between the S23 to the iPhone 15 is actually greater. So just to be clear, the gap in like how much faster the S23 Ultra is compared to the iPhone 15 is greater than the gap, or like, you know, the times multiplier of the difference between the iPhone 15 Pro Max to the S23 Ultra. Now in that video, there was a lot of people in the comments saying that I should test the S23 Ultra compared to the iPhone 15 and not the Pro Max, because obviously a lot of people would have known that the results would have been reversed. So that is the whole reason why I'm doing this video, and it's literally because I want to be fair about these things. There is absolutely no benefit to showing only one side of a story. So this is kind of the other side of the story, which will show all you Android users out there that yes, the S23 Ultra is definitely way faster than the iPhone 15 for this particular type of task. Now for anybody interested in the S23 Ultra versus iPhone 15 Pro Max speed test video, there will be a link to that in the video description below, and probably one at the end of the video as well. Now one other thing I've got to make really clear here, because it is very important to all of these types of videos, and that is how the file sizes and also the speeds are being measured. So what we are measuring here are megabytes and gigabytes, and for that it is 1,000 megabytes inside 1 gigabyte, and that is absolutely correct. There has been no change to that since 1998. What it was prior to 1998, we used to use 1024 for the amount of megabytes inside a gigabyte, but what happened in 1998, that standard changed and it was changed to 1,000 megabytes to 1 gigabyte. Now after 1998, the measurement for 1024 was changed to mebibyte and gibibyte. So they are two completely different ways of measuring things. Now, as people probably should already know, and this is easy to find out because you will see this on the back of the boxes or the specifications for SSDs and storage, they are all measured in base 10. So basically 1,000 megabytes in a gigabyte. That is everyone. Apple do it. Samsung do it. Everyone basically does it. That is actually the international standard for measuring drive space and also speed. So it is done in base 10. The base 2 measurement, which is 1024, some people still use it for certain things. In fact, Microsoft still actually use that within Windows, and that can become very disorientating for people because it doesn't give you a true representation of what your file spaces are on a disk, because it's a different measurement being used by Windows compared to what the actual SSD manufacturers are using. So to be clear, I have been correcting everything that I've been doing here. We work in base 10 and not base 2 for these measurements. So to be doubly clear, the file size that I am working with here, which is 10,631 megabytes, is as measured the way Apple and Samsung would measure the space on their SSDs. And as far as SSDs are concerned, the SSD that I'm going to be using in this particular test is a combination of a Sabrent enclosure with a Samsung NVMe Gen 3 SSD inside it. I'll actually do a little bit more in my explanations once I get into the testing here. However, there will also be a video that you can go and look at which shows you how to put together this drive, and this so far has been the fastest SSD that I have used on the iPhone 15s, and it is also the fastest that I have used on the S23 Ultra as well. Okay, so I think that's enough for that. So let's get into all this testing and I'll do a little bit more explaining as I go along. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be using for the test. So I've got this SSD here. I will show you this in a second. There is the iPhone 15 and there is the S23 Ultra. So let me just get the two phones out of the way for a moment. Now, with this SSD here, what it is a Sabrent enclosure, and inside I have got a Samsung SSD 980. Now, it just so happens that this particular drive combination here is the fastest drive that I've managed to be able to put together for the iPhone 15 series so far. So this can actually do up to 960 megabytes per second with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Also, it is probably the fastest drive I've tested with my Samsung devices as well, and that includes the S23 Ultra. So nonetheless, this is a fast drive, and it is going to be faster than both of these phones in this test anyway. And also, there's the cable that it comes with. Now, just to be perfectly clear, this drive system is on a 10 gigabits per second like USB bus, which once again is like way faster than what any of these two phones in this particular test can actually reach anyways. Okay, so let me just get to the iPhone here. So what I'm going to do is just show you some of the stuff about the iPhone just so that you know exactly what's going on. So what I'm going to do here is show you that I am in airplane mode. So basically nothing can be like messing around here. In fact, you know what? I will also switch off Bluetooth as well. So there is absolutely no radio communication going on with the phone at the moment. Not that that would make a difference to anything, but I'm just going to switch it off anyways. Now what I'm going to do is to connect the SSD to the phone. Let me see. I might have to put it on the other side. I'm not too sure. Give me a sec. What it is, I still have to bring in my other phone to do the timing here. So yeah, I'll just put the SSD there, okay, just so I can bring the phone in on this side for the timings. Now what I'm going to do is just go to, let's see, the settings here. And then what I'm going to do is go to the storage. And as we can see, as far as the storage is concerned, there is 101 gigabytes free. So there's absolutely no way that, like, you know, the storage can get in the way, like as if like the storage is like, you know, nearly full or something like that. So it's basically almost empty, to be honest. So once again, obviously storage cannot get in the way of the test. So let me just get rid of that for a moment. So what I'm going to do here is to open up the Files app. And then once I'm in the Files app here, what I'm going to do is just come out. I'm just going to go here. I'm going to get rid of the settings. So as we can see here, I've only got the one app running. So to be clear, only one app running, which is the Files app. No communicating going on with anything via any of the wireless options. And also the phone itself is like basically empty as far as the storage is concerned. So what I'm going to do is get into here. Now what I will do is bring this other phone in. We'll use this as the timer. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do then is to copy the file from the external SSD to the internal storage of the iPhone. So what I'm going to do is just go to the external SSD. This is the file that I'm going to be using here. So I'm going to copy the file. I'll go back to the internal storage on my iPhone there. Now what I'm going to do is paste it into the internal storage and hit the start button at the same time, hopefully. Give me one moment. Hold on. Yeah, got it right. What happens is sometimes when I do this, I don't touch one of the buttons, so like only one thing happens, but yes, I got it right this time. Anyways, what I'm going to do then is speed through this here, then I will come back in towards the end once this blue dot up here gets full, and then that will mean like when that vanishes that the file is copied, then I will hit stop. Okay, I'm going to come back in here and get ready to hit stop as soon as that's done. There we go. So I'm going to call that 4 minutes and 2 seconds. So let me just make a note of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to copy the file from the internal storage of the iPhone to the external SSD. So what I'm going to do first is go to the SSD. I'm going to delete the file here. So delete the file. And then what I'm going to do here is just go to the bin, although I don't think it'll be in the bin. No, so there's nothing in the bin. What it is, I always delete the bin after I do these things. But what happens generally is that with most devices, when the file is on an external media of any description, whether that be like SD card or SSD, doesn't matter, you generally don't have it end up in the bin anyway, so there's nothing to delete in the bin. So just to be clear, the file is no longer on the external drive and it is only on the internal storage. So what I'm going to do is do copy from the internal storage here. Then I'm going to go to the external drive and then I'm going to paste, and hopefully it starts at the same time. So give me a second. Yay, I got it right again. I definitely deserve a Blue Peter badge. Okay, so what I'm going to do here then is just let this speed through. I will come in at the end and then take a note of the timing. Okay, I'm going to come back in here and get ready to hit stop as soon as that blue dot's filled and the file has gone over. There we go. So stop. So that is 4 minutes and 39 seconds. So I'm just going to make a note of that. Okay, so I'm now going to do the testing for the S23 Ultra. And the same thing, I'm just going to show you some stuff here first. So if I show you this, as we can see, I'm in flight mode, so no Bluetooth, wireless, or any kind of like, wireless type communication going on. Once again, it would not interfere with tests like this, but I'm just doing it anyway for thoroughness for those people who think it might make a difference. Anyway, if I come back here, now if I go to the file manager, as we will see here, I have got over 400 gigabytes spare of internal storage. So there is absolutely no way that I'm getting close to filling up the internal storage in case that was ever going to be a problem. Now, if we have a look here as well, the only app that is running is the file app there as well. So let me just go back on the file app. So what I'm going to do is bring the Sabrent back in here, the SSD. Let me plug that into the phone. Hold on. Give us a sec. Okay, should pop up here in a second. There we go. So there it is. In fact, I'll put the drive on this side again only because I've got to get the phone on the other side for the timing. So let's see, can I get it in here? Yeah, there we go. So there's the other phone for the timing. Let me just reset that times there. And then let me just put that there. What it is, the SSD is in an awkward position, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do then is to copy the file from the external SSD to the internal storage. And just so that we know, if I go to the internal storage, there's actually no files in the root there, and that's where I'm going to be putting the file. So let me come back here. So I'm going to go to the external storage. I'm going to select the file to copy, so copy the file. I'm going to come back here, and then I'm going to go to the internal storage, and I'm going to do copy here and hit start at the same time. Give me a moment. That didn't happen. Okay, so let me reset. Do that again. Okay, so there we go then. Now, once again, what I'm going to do is to speed through this and then come back in and hit stop once the file is copied over. Okay, I'm going to come back here and get ready to hit stop. There we go, stop. Now, look at that, 48 seconds. So I think we can immediately see what's going on here. However, for the sake of being thorough, let me just make a note of that timing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to copy the file from the internal storage of the S23 Ultra to the external SSD. Now let me just reset that timer. So the first thing that I'm going to do, let me just double check something here. I'm going to go to the SSD. I'm going to delete the file from the SSD. So let me just hit delete there. Let's do that, delete. Okay, I'll come back here. And once again, I think with Android as well, does this not have to delete external files from the bin? No, so once again, same thing with Android. If the media is external, it doesn't get cached anywhere, so you don't have to go to the recycle bin to empty it, or at least that's what I found with everything that I've connected to the phone. So like we can see here, external storage, that file doesn't exist anymore there, but on the internal storage, there's the file. So what I'm going to do is copy from the internal storage there. I will go to the external storage or the external SSD. I'm going to do copy here and hit start. Let's see if I can do this at the same time. Right, what it is, just dead quickly, I'm on a slight angle here and I can't quite see the buttons, which is the reason why sometimes I miss one of the buttons. So let me just get my head out the way. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Got it successfully done that time. So once again, what I'm going to do is let this speed through and then come back and hit stop. Although saying that, for the speed that it's doing it, you know, do I really need to speed this thing up? Because I could probably just talk my way through this bit here and just kind of pad it out, because this is so fast in doing the test anyway. Actually, I will pad this out a sec because it's nearly done. The reason why this is working like amazingly fast this time is because it is a smaller file than what I would normally use. Actually, give me a second here. It's going too fast. Hold on. Stop. Okay, I'll make a note of this in a second. What I was just about to say is this particular file is much smaller than what I've been using in my recent tests. And the reason for that is because, as we can see, there's the other file that I've been using in my tests. Now, the thing is, if I were to use that particular file in this particular test, the iPhone would have just took way too long. And there's a fair chance that trying to record any of those tests with that file on the actual iPhone, the battery for the camera probably would have run out. So that's the reason why I've gone down to the 10 gigabit file, or sorry, 10 gigabyte file. Must get that one right, otherwise people will catch me in the comments for that one. Anyways, nonetheless, 38 seconds that took. So just to be clear, going from the internal storage of the phone to the external SSD took only 38 seconds. So let me just make a note of that. Okay, so I'm just going to do some quick simple calculations to get the megabytes per second, and then I will just pop them up on a title right now. Okay, so to the final megabytes per second speeds then, and the file that we used was 10,631 megabytes in size. So going from the SSD to the iPhone took 4 minutes and 2 seconds, which is 242 seconds. So if we divide 10,631 by 242, we get 43, which is 43 megabytes per second. Then when we go from the iPhone to the SSD, that took 4 minutes and 39 seconds, which is 279 seconds. So if we divide 10,631 by 279, we get 38, which is 38 megabytes per second. And then moving on to the S23 Ultra, going from the SSD to the S23 Ultra took 48 seconds. So if we divide 10,631 by 48, we get 221, which is 221 megabytes per second. Then when we go from the S23 Ultra to the SSD, that took 38 seconds. So if we divide 10,631 by 38, we get 279, which equals 279 megabytes per second. So as we can clearly see there, the S23 Ultra completely demolishes the iPhone 15. And when I say it completely demolishes it, if we look at this as a times multiplier, going from the SSD to the phones, the S23 Ultra was 5 times faster than the iPhone 15. And then going from the phones to the SSD, the S23 Ultra was over 7 times faster than the iPhone 15. Okay, so to an end summary then, and the first thing that is really clear here, and that is the S23 Ultra absolutely destroys the iPhone 15 in this particular type of speed testing, which once again is testing for how fast these things can actually transfer data to and from external SSDs through their USB-C ports. And indeed, the actual destruction or the actual devastation that's gone on here is greater than the devastation comparing the S23 Ultra to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, because don't forget, in that particular test, the Pro Max beats the S23 Ultra, and whilst I would say it destroys it, the actual S23 Ultra here completely and utterly destroys the iPhone 15. Now, I just want to quickly address some of the inevitable things that will come up in the comment section here, right? And these are generally going to be along the lines of the type of USB-C cable used, the type of enclosure, the type of SSD, the types of storage within the two phones and stuff like that. So let me just put this in a nutshell. This SSD here, right, is capable of doing almost 1000 megabytes per second. Its cable and its enclosure are basically 10 gigabits, which is 12,050 megabytes per second. However, the combination with the SSD inside it will allow this drive to do almost 1,000 megabytes when it's connected to something that can actually accept that type of speed. Now, when we look at the S23 Ultra here, its USB-C port is only capable of doing 5 gigabits per second, which is 625 megabytes per second. Now, for anybody who doesn't believe that, go and check the Samsung website. All the specifications for this phone are on there, and its port is definitely only 5 gigabits per second. And as I've just said, 5 gigabits is 625 megabytes. However, that 625 megabytes is obviously way lower than what this drive can do, which means that this drive can definitely not be a bottleneck in this particular scenario. But what's actually worse on top of that, as it were, as far as the speeds are concerned, is that although the port on the phone can do 5 gigabits or 625 megabytes, the storage definitely can't. So what's happening here, what we're seeing, we're hitting around, just under 280 megabytes per second. Well, it probably is that. That is the maximum speed of the internal storage. It might be a little bit higher than that because there's probably some kind of small overhead involved here, but it definitely won't be that much more than, say, 300 megabytes per second. So the point being made here is the storage within the S23 Ultra will be the defining bottleneck in this whole thing, not its port, not the cable, and most certainly not the SSD in here or the speed that this entire drive is capable of running at. And then when we move over to the iPhone 15, this becomes a complete joke, okay? Listen to this one, because I'm going to maybe do a video about this one on its own, right? The port on the iPhone 15, although it is USB-C, Apple have limited this effectively to USB 2 speeds, which is 480 megabits per second. So that's essentially 60 megabytes per second, and that is maximum. So as we can see there, as I've just explained between the differences of that SSD to the S23 Ultra, this SSD is a magnitude of order of, I don't know, 1 billion times faster. It's not 1 billion, but obviously that is even way, way faster than what this phone is capable of. Now, here is the real kicker and the sickener for all you iPhone 15 users out there. The storage inside this phone is mega fast, okay? The storage in this phone is way faster than the storage on the S23 Ultra. So what Apple are doing here is giving you super fast storage inside an iPhone 15, and I dare say it's the same storage as what's in the Pro Max, or at least it will be, say, when we start comparing, say, the size of the storage, say 256, 512 and stuff like that. However, the storage in here is being massively, massively throttled by the USB-C port, which can only do a maximum of 60 megabytes per second. In fact, give me a second. Yeah, I've just checked there on my notes. The maximum that we got here was 43 megabytes per second. So even the fastest that we've seen in this test was nowhere near 60. So even if we could get 60, which we can't, that 60 is so low, it is basically next to useless. So if you've got an iPhone 15, you can surely feel aggrieved that what Apple have done here is to put a fantastic storage unit inside the phone itself, but then limited your ability to get access to that storage quickly when connecting to external SSDs. This thing is an absolute joke. Anyways, I'm gonna just rein myself in there because I don't want to turn this into some kind of mad rant about what Apple have done with the iPhone 15. However, I will be doing a video at some point comparing like the Pro Max and the 15 together and just giving people like a rundown of like the major differences, which are absolutely inexcusable because there's a load of them. I mean, all right, look, I'm not going to go on a rant, but here's the bottom line. For what is an $800 flagship phone, and no matter how you cut and dice this, the iPhone 15 standard is still a flagship phone. But more importantly, for $800, you are missing so much stuff that much cheaper Android phones will give you. Anyway, definitely not going near that rant in this video because it'll just make the video super long. Actually, I've just forgotten a really important video to mention, and that is going to be the same type of video as this, but comparing the iPhone 15 to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And here's the thing. These last couple of videos, if you've thought that, like, you know, there's something being demolished in these videos, which there has been, the difference between these two phones is just an absolute nightmare. And this thing here, you will want to throw it in the bin when you see the results to that video. Anyways, I think that will do it for this video because I don't think there's much else for me to cover here. But I would be very interested in what other people have got to say about this particular test and stuff, and maybe what they think about what Apple have done here and the way that all these phones compare to one another, and you know, the differences between them and stuff like that. I mean, hopefully next year when we get the S24 Ultra, I think we're definitely going to start seeing these gaps like closing right down. I mean, don't get me wrong, this thing's still going to be terrible, but the Pro Max, I think, is probably going to get a good run for its money with the S24, or hopefully it will. Anyways, that's definitely the last thing for me to say, because what it is, once I get going, I don't know when to shut my trap. Anyways, for anybody out there who was interested, there will be links to all the stuff used in the video description below. If you have liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and a sub to the channel would be absolutely awesome. And if you're into this type of stuff, then definitely check, like, you know, my most recent videos. There might be some other stuff in there you might be interested in. I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.